You have to direct us. Tell us.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I want to be right in the middle. Sarah, you go right in the middle.
Yeah, come on, Sarah. You're
Because I'm short.
yeah, short people in front.
Well, you're going to be in back of the podium, so.
Sticky fingers.
So you can't stand. Squeeze in, you can form 2 rows. All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to our little press conference about the Wisconsin Equal Rights Amendment Bill. I'm Irene Strobin. I'm here representing Midday Women's Alliance, who is hosting this event with the Women's Action Coalition. That's a relatively new organization here in the Fox Valley. There are 5 women's organizations that are part of the Women's Action Coalition. In addition to Midday Women's Alliance, it's the League of Women Voters of Appleton Fox Cities, the AAUW Appleton branch, Women's Fund of the Fox Valley region, and Delta Sigma Theta, which is a Black women's sorority. I'm co-chair of the Legislative Committee for Midday Women's Alliance, and the Equal Rights Amendment is really core to our legislative platform. We've been educating ourselves about the status of the Equal Rights Amendment for almost 10 years now, and we were really heartened to see the movement, on the federal level with 38 states having ratified the Equal Rights Amendment, but it has been stalled out. And so we were very excited to hear about the state ERA bill being proposed, and we're hosting this press conference to amplify the message to the public that it will be valuable to have an Equal Rights Amendment here in the state and how it will help us in the future. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to Representative Lori Palmieri, who's the bill author.
So thank you, Irene, and to the wonderful organizations who've coordinated this event today. And my name's Lori Palmieri. I'm from the 54th Assembly District in Oshkosh. I'm honored to join you here today at Longcheng Marketplace and the Hmong Community Center to share information and lead the introduction once again of a joint resolution to amend Article 1, creating Section 27 of the Wisconsin State Constitution for an Equal Rights Amendment. Can you say it's about damn time? It is about damn time. It is past time. You know, much work has been done by previous legislators, organizations, our mothers, our grandmothers. They've all done a lot to get this far. But there is much yet to be done. In order to get this passed, and I have to say, after more than 50 years, it's embarrassing that any Wisconsinite has fewer rights than another. It's past time that we include protections in our state constitution for women and people in this state from discrimination. While the complexities are many, and we came close in the 70s, we have work to do to ensure equality is reflected in our state constitution. I'll now share the language of Legislative Reference Bill 1658, and that is to create Section 27 of Article 1 of the Wisconsin State Constitution relating to equality of rights on the basis of sex, gender identity, race, color, sexual orientation, disability, religion, national origin, marital status, family status, age, ancestry, or any other immutable characteristics, and creating a private, this is really important. It doesn't just recognize, but it creates a private cause of action for violations of those rights by state actors. Now, this is what's considered the first consideration, and our Legislative Reference Bureau has given an analysis that, you know, this was proposed in 2021 by Representative Lee Snodgrass here, who's going to come up next and speak a little more. But it provides that equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the state or any political subdivision of the state on account of those characteristics. This constitutional amendment requires the state and each of those political subdivisions to protect and secure the equality of these rights. And I just want to say that I'm very honored to be here and allowed to be in this role in a really historic moment in Wisconsin's history. Let's get this done. After 50 years, it's about damn time. Representative Lee Snodgrass is going to come up and speak a little more about this. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Welcome to the 57th Assembly District. I'm the proud representative of the 57th, which is Appleton and Menasha and parts of Fox Crossing. Thank you to Longcheng for hosting us, and thank you for all of our partners for allowing us to be here today. Representative Palmieri did a fantastic job, and I just want to underline a few things that she said. She already broke the seal on some curse words, so I'll be a little bit more, because we've got media here, but I think back to a sign that you'll sometimes see resurface again and again, particularly held by some of our older adults, usually grandparents or grandmothers or mothers, that say, "I can't believe I'm still protesting this." And then they add another colorful word. And that is where we are today. This is, Wisconsin has, as you'll hear later with some of our speakers, has the distinction of having led the way with the Equal Rights Amendment way back in the 70s. And here we are today in 2024 with Lori and I talking to you again about this. So as she mentioned, this amendment would enshrine equal rights in the Wisconsin Constitution, banning discrimination on the basis of race, color, sexual orientation, disability, gender identity, religion, national origin, marital status, family status, age, and ancestry, or any other immutable characteristics of those living here in Wisconsin. Think about how many of us can pick one of those things and think of a scenario where we could be discriminated against. And I do think it's important to mention to you today that I'm also a bisexual woman. I'm a member of the LGBTQ+ community, and as you know, there's a lot of discrimination that still happens, particularly when it comes to our transgender community. So the Equal Rights Amendment is important for all of us. It's important for so many of us sitting here today, and certainly for everybody throughout Wisconsin. This is what happens when your phone times out. Here we go. We must challenge gender bias and uplift the voices of women throughout our state. The Wisconsin Equal Rights Amendment does just that, but so much more, as I've mentioned. It recognizes the need to protect equal rights, and equal protection under the law includes not just sex or gender, but a constellation of immutable traits that can make up a person's identity. The ERA is for all of us, and I am proud to sign on as a co-author. Every year we ask a freshman legislator or a first-term legislator to lead this, and so this year that legislator is Lori. But we all stand behind the ERA, and we all are hoping, once again, into the breach, if we keep introducing this and making sure people understand that this has not yet been passed, that we really have an opportunity to continue to move us forward. So thank you for being here today, and we'll hear from our next speaker.
Thank you to Lori and to Lee. Our next speaker is Mary Ann Rossi. She's probably one of the first feminists in the Appleton area. She's former legislative coordinator for the Wisconsin Governor's Commission on the Status of Women, co-founder of the Fox Cities chapter of NOW, and member of the Executive Board National Association of Commissions for Women. So she has a lot of experience working on women's rights. Mary Ann?
Thank you, Irene. And thanks to everyone who made this meeting today possible. Thanks to the Longcheng community for giving us a space. This is an account of the failure to pass the Wisconsin Equal Rights Amendment in the 1970s when it should have passed. And indeed it did pass and was soon rescinded by a Republican legislature. Inspired by Catherine Clarenbach and Jean Boyer, founders of the National Organization for Women, a small group of concerned women began to gather weekly and became activists as the Fox Cities chapter of NOW. Whenever we saw injustice, we took action. Dolly Byrne was paid half as much as her male co-worker at City Hall. Using Title V, we fought her case for 2 years, and we won. The injustice was corrected. As chair of the Task Force on Battered Women and as legislative chair of the Governor's Commission, I gave testimony that helped make wife battering a felony rather than a misdemeanor. The head of an Appleton bank refused credit to a woman who ran her own firm. We worked to pass a law making it illegal not to grant credit to credit-worthy women. The fee for ignoring this was $2,000. Viola got her loan even though her husband was unemployed because of an injury. We gathered other women's groups and formed Women's Center comprised of 12 groups. We kept in touch with City Hall on the progress of the ERA legislation. In Appleton, we've been rescuing victims of domestic violence with Harbor House, our outstanding refuge for battered women and their children. With these and other legal corrections, and with the growing equality of women, interest in passing the Wisconsin ERA waned. In fact, we were not aware that of the last 2 times it was introduced in the Wisconsin legislature. Nobody heard about it. I mean, that's how much people were kind of resting on our laurels and thinking things were better for women. Not true. Now that the Wisconsin ERA has been reintroduced, it is time to regroup in order to fulfill the dream of Susan B. Anthony and countless others. Equality of justice will not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex.
Thank you, Marianne. It was always valuable to go back and revisit history, especially when there's so much related to the ERA. Our next speaker is Linda Biela. She is president of the League of Women Voters of Appleton and the Fox Cities.
Thank you, Irene, and thank you all of us who are assembled here, and especially Representatives Palmieri and Snodgrass for their leadership on this issue. Irene asked me to speak a little bit about the history, and the first thing I want to tell you, probably many of you know, Wisconsin was the very first state to ratify the 19th Amendment. So let's give ourselves a hand for that. Next week we celebrate Valentine's Day. February 14th also marks the 104th anniversary of the founding of the League of Women Voters. Our founder, suffragist leader Carrie Chapman Catt, envisioned an organization that would educate the newly enfranchised women voters once the 19th Amendment was passed in 1920. Since then, the League's mission has vastly expanded to empower all voters and defend democracy. Another suffragist leader was Alice Paul, author of the Equal Rights Amendment. She founded the National Women's Party, which had parted ways with the National American Woman Suffragist Party, led by Carrie Chapman Catt. Both of these visionary women played a crucial role in achieving women's right to vote. The approach taken by Alice Paul and her followers was far more militant than that taken by Carrie Chapman Catt. But without both, I don't believe women's suffrage would have been achieved in 1920. In an era when most women didn't go to college, Alice Paul earned degrees from Swarthmore, Columbia, and a PhD from the University of Pennsylvania. An important part of her real-life education was what she learned when she went to England in 1907 and became part of the far more radical women's suffragist movement there. She was arrested, imprisoned, and engaged in hunger strikes, along with the British suffragists. Paul returned to the US in 1910, convinced that the more radical public approach for women's rights was effective. She organized the first women's suffrage parade in Washington, D.C. in 1913 on the eve of the inauguration of President Woodrow Wilson. It was a huge spectacle, and so many people attended the parade that there was hardly anyone on hand at the train station when the soon-to-be President of the United States arrived. Beginning in 1917, Alice Paul and her fellow members of the National Women's Party organized the first public picketing in front of the White House, demanding that President Wilson support women's right to vote. These silent sentinels were arrested, put in prison, tortured, and engaged in hunger strikes. You may have seen the 2004 film Iron-Jawed Angels, which depicted Paul and her followers resisting force feeding. The publicity they garnered changed public sympathies, and the tide began to turn in favor of the eventual passage of the 19th Amendment. In 1923, 101 years ago, Alice Paul introduced an Equal Rights Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It was introduced every year in Congress and was finally passed in 1972. It took until 2020 to achieve ratification by 3/4 of the states, and it still has not been officially published into the Constitution, entangled in legal challenges about artificially imposed congressional deadlines. But we don't have to wait to do the right thing for women in Wisconsin. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Appleton Fox Cities, I want to express gratitude to Representatives Palmieri and Snodgrass for authoring this bill and for their support. May the courage of Alice Paul inspire all of us to work to enshrine the rights for women in the Wisconsin Constitution.
Thank you, Linda. Great history lesson for all of us. Our next speaker is Becky O'Connor from the Appleton branch of AAUW, American Association of University Women.
Good afternoon. I am a member of AAUW Appleton, proudly representing not only our 160 branch members, but the larger AAUW community of more than 170,000 people standing strong for gender equity throughout the United States. AAUW's story began in 1881 when a small group of female college graduates banded together to open the doors for women's career advancement and to encourage more women to pursue higher education. AAUW's focus on gender equity in education and employment has been a cornerstone of this organization. The history of the AAUW mirrors the progress of women in the United States. The history mirrors the progress of the focus and intent of the Equal Rights Amendment as well. Hundreds of research reports have been published, from an 1885 paper disproving a prevailing myth that college impairs a woman's fertility, to most recently, a study documenting the economic impact of workplace sexual harassment. Advocacy efforts have propelled new laws, including the Equal Pay Act, the Title IX Amendment, the Family and Medical Leave Act, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, and one awaiting action in the Senate, the Paycheck Fairness Act. AAUW priorities are in place: removing bias from education, pay equity, lowering student debt, paid family leave, advancing women in leadership, economic security, Title IX, civil rights. But all this circles back to why we're here today: to guarantee equality, individual rights, and social justice for a diverse and inclusive society. AAUW advocates the passage and ratification of the ERA. From the AAUW official statement, the progress of our country has made on gender equality through the courts and the patchwork legislation can be reversed. The ERA would clarify once and for all that sex discrimination in employment and wages, reproductive rights, insurance, Social Security, education, and more is a violation of constitutional rights. Today is one more step in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. So we've heard a bit about the past. Now we have a very special guest speaker who will talk about her future. Megan Eisenstein is currently a sophomore at Lawrence University studying government and specifically policy, public policy within government. She is an ambassador for the admissions department as well as co-leader of the LU Democrats. Megan, thank you.
Thank you so much. for being here. Thank you to Longcheng for hosting, as well as the Midday Women's Alliance for putting today's press conference together and encouraging a young person to speak alongside such amazing representatives and advocates, such as my own representative, Lee Snodgrass. So thank you. On one early May afternoon, I arrived home after taking my AP Government exam as a senior in high school. And I saw a breaking news article saying that leaked documents were discovered, and they hinted at the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade in the Dobbs decision. I was horrified. But I was like, okay, we're gonna live my summer through, I'm gonna go to college in Wisconsin, and it's gonna be okay. Because I lived in Illinois at the time, which I knew would protect my rights to this vital medical procedure. But I was just afraid of going to Wisconsin. And so on a warm June morning, I woke up and read the news that Roe v. Wade was overturned by 5 people on the Supreme Court. I arrived at college newly stripped of this right to decide for myself. How was I supposed to embark on the journey of self-discovery that college is while my medical choices are being considered subordinate to men's by my own country? I realized how to do it. I can make change. I can dedicate myself to the study of policy making and political organizing to join hands with others to make a meaningful difference in the country, in the state, and in our wonderful community. I, as one person affected by Dobbs, cannot change everything or anything without the power of many. My mother saw her male coworkers in government receive one promotion after another while she worked tirelessly to earn even just one. I would love to work in government just as she did, and I would love even more to see my pay properly reflect the work I put in. Every day, there are forces telling us that we cannot get our voices heard, but we are fierce and we aren't stepping back. The work that my legislators do affect all of us, especially my generation. We're counting on all of you, just as you count on us to someday step into your shoes and make sure that this country is a place in which we are all proud to live, regardless of gender. If we had an equal rights amendment in our state constitution, millions of Wisconsinites would gain a right back, one we deserve and one that we will not stop fighting for until we get it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And this young woman is going places, right? Next is Julie Keller, Executive Director of the Women's Fund for the Fox Valley region. She's a hard act to follow.
I know, I'm
like,
Irene. Why did you put me in this position? As Irene said, I'm Julie Keller, Executive Director excuse me, of the Women's Fund for the Fox Valley region. Our mission is to promote the advancement of women and girls, which reflects our vision of a community where power and opportunity are not limited by gender. The Women's Fund has recently adopted a focus on advancing economic opportunities for women and girls. The critical importance of passing the Equal Rights Amendment for women's economic security is supported by compelling statistics that underscores the urgency of this matter. Currently, women continue to face persistent economic disparities, and according to recent studies, women in the United States earn 82 cents for every dollar that their male counterparts earn. This wage gap is even more pronounced for women of color, with African American women earning approximately 63%, Latina women 55%, and the ERA would serve as a constitutional guarantee providing a robust legal framework to challenge and rectify such wage discriminations that we still face. Moreover, the lack of an Equal Rights Amendment contributes to substantial gender imbalances in leadership roles. Women represent 58.4% of the U.S. workforce, yet they continue to be underrepresented in boardrooms and executive positions, hindering their ability to focus and make change on our economic policies and our workplace culture. In 2023, just over 10% of Fortune 500 companies were led by women. This is a record, 10%. 10.4, I think, or 10.3 is the exact number. So that's 53 women compared to 447 men. And this was something we celebrated, getting to 10%. Studies indicate that companies with diverse leadership teams demonstrate higher profitability, greater innovation and thinking. The ERA can act as a catalyst for breaking down those barriers and fostering a more inclusive corporate environment that will truly benefit everyone. Another pressing issue that we also heard about earlier today is the lack of paid family leave and also affordable childcare. So one study done found that 51% of women, compared to only 34% of men, reported that the cost of childcare was a consideration in planning for their own careers. And when asked if they personally cut back on hours or quit a job because of access to childcare, 42% of women indicated that they had, compared to only 20% of the men. So the absence of legal protections exacerbates the challenges faced by working mothers, and they often find themselves torn between professional careers and the childcare and caregiving responsibilities that they hold, which hinders their career advancement. The ERA can serve as a foundation for advocating and legislating policies that support work-life balance and equal opportunities for career progressions. As you can see, the statistics paint a stark picture of the challenges women continue to face in achieving economic security, the gender gap, unequal access to leadership roles, caregiving responsibilities holding back career advancement. The Equal Rights Amendment is not just a symbolic gesture, it is a concrete step forward rectifying these inequities. By passing the ERA in Wisconsin, we create an environment where women can thrive economically, benefiting families, communities, and an entire state as a whole. The passage of the Equal Rights Amendment is a strategic investment in the future of our state. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. So the reason why we want to make sure that people know about this bill being introduced and the necessity for this amendment to our Constitution is so that we can all advocate to our elected officials that we need this now. And so some of you may be wondering, well, how do I advocate? Well, we have the answer. Sandy. Sandy is, actually, she's a member of many organizations. She's my cohort with Midday Women's Alliance, past legislative chair. So she's going to review, for those of you who aren't aware, how you can advocate with your elected officials.
Thank you. This is what I'm supposed to use? Can you hear me? Oh my gosh. All right, so I guess there's a two-piece component to this. First, we need to make sure that you're registered to vote and that you exercise that right to vote. So there's information in the back, courtesy of the League of Women Voters, about myvote.wi.gov. You can go there, you can register, and, all right, thank you, Rona. You can register to vote, you can check that your absentee requests are being processed, you can find out where you go to vote, you can go find your legislators top down, from the president down to your local clerks or whatever. So the point that we want you to do for this event, though, is to write to your reps in Wisconsin. And in order to do that, you probably want to find their email address or even their phone number to call and leave a message. And that would be found on the legislative.wisconsin.gov. So legis.wisconsin, the whole word, .gov. You'll be able to go there. It'll, it's kind of complicated, so I want to walk you through. It's going to pop up a map. You're going to go up in the upper right-hand corner, put your address in, and then hit the search button. It will pop you up a little screen that shows your state senator and your state rep based on your address. Okay, the trick is if you hit the little button on the bottom of that pop-up screen that says more information, it's going to give you a bigger picture so you can actually read it, because it's very small on that map. So I was going to ask people to do that on their phones today, but it is very tiny. So instead, we do have it written on the board over here. There's some printouts at the cake table. Don't forget to stick around for cake. And there's another one at the front desk where you registered that you can take those addresses down and then take action today. Okay? All right, so we're going to leave it to Irene to come back and wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our speakers, because what's a press conference without speakers? Thank you to Mayua. Are you still here, Mayua, for allowing us the space here? Thank you to our representatives, Palmieri and Snodgrass, for taking the charge and let's get this done, right? So remember, all of us here and your friends, the mission is get the word out. Oh, especially the press. Get the word out. This is happening and we need this amendment in our Constitution. And hold our elected representatives accountable. Let them know we want this done. And it's not an overnight thing. It has to be passed by two sessions of the legislature and then put to public referendum. We're fairly confident it will pass public referendum. It's the first two steps that we need to get done. So hold them accountable. Keep writing, emails, phone calls, as Sandy said. And we'll get it done. It's been way too long and we really need it. So, as Sandy said, please stick around for cake. There's a beautiful cake back there. Talk to the elected representatives here. Talk to our students. We have 3 Lawrence students here representing the next generation. And again, thank you all for coming, especially the press for covering this conference.
Thanks,
I mean, we should probably get speakers over by the paper.